Good morning and happy Veterans Day. Want to thank all my fellow veterans, all the men and women that have served our country in any of the armed forces. Thanks to all the first responders out there too. You're serving in a different capacity. But especially thanks to all of those that have joined the military and served, past, present, and those that are going to join in the future. And I'm wearing an old shirt back from the 80s, one I didn't get rid of yet. Darby Cup from South Korea. Those that served over there in the 80s will know that. Had my DMZ cup. Those of us that served in South Korea, understand the DMZ and what that is and what it represents. I spent my last 18 months of the Army over in South Korea. First couple years I spent with the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg. When I was in Korea, went through sniper school, the 2nd Infantry Division Scout Sniper School at Camp Casey. Went back and worked as an assistant instructor on special duty on that school for several class cycles before I ended up getting out of the military. And an individual that we learned about in that school and we talked about was a legend, Carlos Hathcock. Carlos was a Marine sniper, 93 confirmed kills and who knows how many probables. Had some remarkable missions in Vietnam. Was wounded saving people, burned over a large portion of his body. The burns combined with MS, took their tolls on him. We lost him actually, quite a while ago, and it was pretty sad. The last time I called him, I was in law school, so it would have been in the late 90s, and I called him in the fall, and he couldn't come to the phone. Joe, his wife, said, he can't come to the phone and talk on the phone anymore. And a few months later, in that February, he passed away. But I still remember the talks we had, and I wanted to share a couple books because it's Book Saturday. One book, Carlos Hathcock, White Feather by Ron and Norman Chandler. And this is a great book that, just a lot of photos of Carlos and just about him and about Joe, about things that he did. Really good book. It's autographed and signed by both Norman and Roy and Carlos. So it's signed by all three in this copy. A really good book about him and what he did, and some great photographs and stuff in it. So that's sort of a special book in my collection. But a very special book is this copy of 93 Confirmed Kills, original book about him by Charles Henderson. Charles Henderson wrote a follow-up book to this too, which I have back on the shelf. But this one is special because, it is signed by Carlos to me personally. To Alain Baris, I hope all the good things come your way. Semper Fi, Carlos Hathcock, Gunnery Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, retired. So that's sort of special. And there's a little note in here that I have. Hi, Alain. I'm glad you were able to talk to Carlos. Thanks. And, from Joe. And, got to talk with Carlos a number of times. Just a fantastic person, very positive. He had his dark times when he was dealing with the injuries and the MS, but when he came out of those, he was, a positive person. I still remember him telling me, you can't be a slug. You got to do what you can do to be productive and positive. There was a time right before I went to Korea to study Hapkido. So we were out of the military, and I was staying with a buddy of mine, Frank Spears, who has since passed away, but we were really tight friends. Frank was also a graduate of the second ID Scout Sniper School. So he was a fellow sniper. And when I was with him for a short period before I was heading off to go to Korea, I mentioned, having talked to Carlos recently, and was like, you've talked to Carlos Hathcock? Because obviously as a sniper, he knew who Carlos Hathcock was. I was like, sure. You want to talk to him? He's like, yeah. So I called him up and, said, just my friend Frank, he was also a sniper with me in Korea, and he just wanted to say hello. And, so Carlos talked with Frank and stuff that time too. So just, a great individual. I'm happy that I had that chance to have a little bit of a relationship with him, before he passed away way too early. And it just shows we never know. But, I do have these 2 books signed. I actually have, that I never got rid of, a couple Christmas cards from him and Joe back in some of the memento box. So I still have those Christmas cards from him and Joe as well. And just wanted to share these books. You can find Marine Sniper copies still. It's out there. I've seen it in the used bookstore. You probably ordered on Amazon easy enough. So, look up Charles Henderson, and great book if you want to learn about an individual and what he did in Vietnam. This book, I don't know. I'm not sure how easy it would be to find Chandler's book. Google it and look for it. Getting an autograph copy, I'm not sure if you're going to get. Obviously, Carlos has passed away, so you'd have to get one that was signed before he died. But great books about, a real hero in the military. Whether you agree or disagree with the Vietnam War, you can argue about that all day long, and I have thoughts on it too. But you can't dispute that the soldiers that went over there, men like Carlos Hathcock, and were told to do a job, they did their job remarkably, and they had the duty to the country that sent them over there, and the duty and fellowship to the fellow Marines in Carlos Hathcock's situation, fellow soldiers, if you're Army. And they did what they were asked to do, and they weren't really thanked for it. They were actually put down for it at the time, many of them. And so I just had great respect for Carlos Hathcock, knowing what a sniper does, having been trained as a sniper, and knowing what he did in some of those missions. Remarkable. And just, I enjoyed my chats and talks and time that I got to have with him. Even though it was cut short, I still think about him. One of the things I remember him saying is the most important thing for a sniper, and I think it's one of the most important things for all of us: pay attention to detail. That was a motto that he lived with and he taught when he was teaching other snipers. Pay attention to detail. And I think that's just a fantastic motto for life, not just sniping community, but for everything we do. Want to stop and say good morning to Jay and Vicky. Appreciate you guys being here. Dixon says Semper Fi, having Carlos being a Marine. Thank you, Dixon. Appreciate you being here. So that's what I wanted to share this morning. I wanted to thank all my fellow veterans, those that have served in the past, those that will serve right now or are serving right now, and those that will serve in the future. A good friend of mine, his son just graduated from basic training. He graduated high school and then he went off to basic training, and literally he just graduated like last week, I believe. And so, we got to thank the young men and women that are joining and serving now. Thank all of us old guys that we did our time and now we're out, and hope that we have, good young men and women for the rest of history that'll stand up and put their rights aside and serve our country. Because when you enlist, you actually lose some of the rights that are guaranteed to all of us as citizens. We give those up to serve our country. And that's why I really do like seeing the more respect for veterans and the thanking of veterans and so forth now that we didn't have like back in the 70s. But I wish we would also do more for veterans. It's okay to say thank you. It's nice to get a free cup of coffee, which I'll probably go out and get a free cup today. Places are giving away coffee and donuts and meals, and I might go out and have a free lunch and a free donut and coffee this morning. But what I really wish is some of the veterans that need help, serious help, because they were wounded, whether that's physically or mentally, with post-traumatic stress disorder or physical injuries. I'd like to see them getting more help. It's okay to say thank you. It's proper, and I'm glad people are doing it. But I'd like to see some of the veterans that need it get the help that they need. And I'd also like to point out, because sometimes we forget, just because you're a veteran doesn't mean you're a great person. I know some scumbags that were veterans. It happens. You got that many people, there's going to be some bad eggs in there too, right? Not every veteran is a great person. And some of them are dirty scumbags. It happens. However, everyone that served and got out honorably deserves a thank you, at least for that service. And so that's important. And so a huge thank you to everyone, men and women, that have done their part and served our country in the armed forces. Go out and make it a spectacular Saturday. Thank a veteran. Do something that might help veterans. And let's make sure it goes on not just today, but throughout the years, because there is a great sacrifice that they have given and will continue to give to keep our country free and keep our country great. Thank you, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow.